TFA Fam, we are here. It is week 16. It is everything that we have grinded for all year long. Hopefully you're on the ship. If you're watching this, you either love us or you are on the ship. Congratulations, first of all. We don't have a lot of time to waste. You guys got to get those lineups set and basically sweat it out all week because we have games starting on Friday this week. So before we jump into it, hit that subscribe button. It is the Christmas season. You can see the overlay. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, just go to YouTube and search for the Fantasy Authority if you're not watching. Kev has the Santa hat on. Give to us by hitting that subscribe button, and we will be giving to you guys with this Allen Robinson jersey. All you got to do is be a subscriber, and this Allen Robinson jersey could be yours for the low price of a subscribe button. That's it. That's all it takes. Kev, in this episode, we're going to talk about the QB rankings for Week 16 for the fantasy championships. So we don't, like I said, man, we don't have a lot of time to waste. Let's just jump right into this. If you have not watched any of these ranking videos we've done the past couple of weeks, Kev has his rankings loaded up onto the screen. I'm going to talk about the rankings from the Fantasy Pros consensus point of view, just to give a little bit of both worlds here. So Kev's Week 16 rankings for quarterbacks are as follows: Patty Mahomes sitting at the top spot, followed by Aaron Rodgers, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson at 6, Justin Herbert, Ryan Tannehill, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, and Mitchell Trubisky coming in at number 12 to round out the QB1s. Kev, I'm going to give you the floor first. Who are some of the quarterback ones that you want to talk about for Week 16?
Yeah, first off, I just want to talk about, Jalen Hurts, right? And I may have him a little bit higher, I think, in consensus this week. The dude has absolutely crushed the last 2 weeks. And, I kind of went back and forth on a couple of these, like Josh Allen. I think I could probably have Josh Allen ahead of him, maybe possibly Deshaun Watson ahead of him, or even Justin Herbert. I think this whole entire range here of guys is pretty close for me. But with Jalen Hurts, with what he's able to do on the ground, plus with what we just saw, his upside with his arm, it's really hard not to fall in love with what he's able to do. Because if you look over the last 2 weeks, he's 10th in passing yards, he's tied for 5th, and with 4 passing touchdowns. His 9.4 average depth of target is also 9th over that span. He's also leads all quarterbacks with 29 rush attempts, 169 rushing yards, and he also has 1 rushing touchdown. And he faces the Cowboys this week, who have allowed the 2nd most passing touchdowns and the 12th most fantasy points to the position. So, I mean, he's really kind of a locked-in QB1 for me this week, and I have him as a top 5 option. And then if you really look on paper, I think you may see some people this week talk about how the Cowboys have been better against the pass as of late, 27th in passing yards allowed over the last 4 weeks. But if you dig a little bit deeper, some context behind that, they've faced the 49ers, Bengals, Ravens, and Washington football team, which, let's be honest, none of those offenses really strike fear into you in terms of passing upside. So I think some of that's a little bit misleading. So I like Jalen Hurts quite a bit against Dallas. This is a phenomenal matchup for him. We saw what he was able to do against a much better Cardinal defense last week. So I like Jalen Hurts for all the money this week. I pretty much, under any circumstance, really don't want to sit him. I know we've had a couple questions already about like Aaron Rodgers. I'm playing Aaron Rodgers. They're playing Tennessee. But when it comes down to guys like Josh Allen and some of these other quarterbacks, like, it's just too hard for me to want to sit Jalen Hurts for these guys just because of the spot. Like, you look at Josh Allen this week, they're playing the Patriots, which the Patriots defense is a little bit banged up because it sounds like they're going to be missing Stephon Gilmore, so that's not really the same defense. And this Bills offense has been so good, but this is a divisional game, a rivalry game where I could see this maybe being a little more lower scoring. I just think the path to the upside here for Jalen Hurts is so high. I think you can make a case for Deshaun Watson, but Cincinnati's defense has been playing a little bit better as well. So that's why I have Jalen Hurts where I have him, and I feel really strong about it. I think Jalen Hurts is going to win a lot of people championships this week.
Yeah, you're slightly higher on Hurts versus the Fantasy Pros consensus. He is sitting at 7 right now. You have him at 4. The guy that I want to talk about and touch on real quick before we talk about someone that we are lower on this week is Deshaun Watson. You just mentioned him in passing. And you also mentioned the Bengals actually playing well in terms of fantasy points. Obviously, that's not a good defense, not a good team. But the stats they've given up surprised me a little bit whenever I was looking at this. But over the past 3 weeks, Watson hasn't finished higher than QB10, despite throwing for over 300 yards in 2 of those 3 weeks. Like we were mentioning, the Bengals on paper, especially in terms of fantasy points, do look better than what the public perception of them would be. But they've also faced a couple of quarterbacks who've just put up absolute dud weeks, like that Ben Roethlisberger guy. Alex Smith had like 10 points against him. Lamar Jackson had a bad game against him earlier in the year. There's been some other guys too who have definitely helped out in terms of what their overall fantasy points against look like. But they're still giving up 5.8 yards per play. That's tied for fourth most in the league. And 44% of their defensive drives are ending in a score, and that is 10th highest in the NFL. Something else to note here, Bengals are also giving up the 8th most net passing yards gained per attempt. Watson is throwing the 7th highest intended air yards in the league, and the Bengals have faced the 5th highest defensive ADOT. So basically, what all this just to say that I think Watson kind of gets back on track here. He does what Big Ben was not able to do this past week, and I think he smashes. And I think we see a top 5, top 6 performance, kind of right where you have him. The quarterback, real quick, I want to touch on that I'm lower on, that I see you are lower on as well. That is Russ Wilson. Just going up in this matchup, if you were able to pick up Hurts, you were mentioning a couple of the questions we've been getting so far on Hurts. If you were able to pick up Hurts and you have Wilson, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm starting Hurts over Russ Wilson this week. In 17 career games against the Rams, Wilson's only averaging 220 yards, and he's averaging fewer than 1.5 touchdowns per game. In the last 3 games that Wilson has played against the Rams, he's averaging less than 17 fantasy points per game against them. So, like I said, someone like Hurts definitely playing over him. There's a couple other streamers we're going to get into that I think are also in play in this matchup because, it's week 16, can't play scared. So who's someone that you are lower on this week, Kev?
I'm a little lower on Lamar Jackson this week than I think some other people might be because this New York Giants defense has been quietly pretty solid this year against both the run and the pass. They are 23rd in pass DVOA, but if you look at just against quarterbacks, they've allowed the 4th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. And then I wanted to look at, well, we know that, Lamar Jackson's not going to go out here and chuck the ball 40 times. So how have they been against running quarterbacks as well? And they've only allowed the 5th fewest rushing yards to quarterbacks this year. And they've also only allowed 1 rushing touchdown on the season. Now, the rushing touchdowns, I think, is a little bit fluky. But regardless of that, they've done a pretty good job. And this run defense has been really good as well. So I think the Giants can give Lamar Jackson and this offense a little bit of trouble. And so I do have Lamar Jackson a little bit closer. No defense is going to completely shut down Lamar Jackson. So while I do have him a little bit lower, I think there are some quarterbacks that are in play. And let's be honest, this week, if you're in the fantasy championship, obviously there is no next week, so it doesn't really matter. But to me, this is all about upside. So if you're heading into this matchup, and let's say you're a team that just maybe the other side that is just loaded and you kind of need that total upside play, I think you really consider sitting Lamar Jackson, who just got you here because last week he put up, 35 fantasy points, I believe, somewhere in that range against the Jaguars. But, if Jalen Hurts is sitting out there, or if you have Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, I'm playing Jalen Hurts all day. And I would even consider a guy like Mitch Trubisky over him just because I feel like Mitch Trubisky's ceiling is a little bit higher this week than what Lamar Jackson's is. I don't hate Lamar Jackson. This isn't an anti-Lamar Jackson, but I just think with this matchup against the Giants, I think this game could be a little bit closer, a little bit low scoring. And so I'm just a little bit lower on Lamar Jackson. I still have him as a QB1, but I wouldn't have the same expectation as what we just saw last week.
Yeah, I think Hurts is someone who has the same type of game, obviously, as Lamar Jackson. And frankly, at this point, he already might be a better passer. So I think that's a really good call. And, I'm going to be excited to see, or interested in seeing, how many of these championship teams that Jalen Hurts is on. So moving things on to the QB2s for week 16, your rankings are Matt Ryan at QB 13, Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford, Drew Brees, Tua Tagovailoa, Big Ben, Phillip Rivers, Cam Newton, Drew Lock, and then Teddy Bridgewater rounding things out at QB 24. Who are some of these streaming options and some of these other guys who are a little bit further on down the list that you're interested in this week?
Well, I mean, he's actually on the other one, but Mitch Trubisky, once again, it's another great week for Mitch Trubisky. He's coming off a week against Minnesota where they didn't really have to do a whole lot through the air, but this week they play Jacksonville, who allows the third most fantasy points position and also allow the most passing touchdown. They're 31st in pass DVOA, so this is just a defense that he can torch. We'll see. Maybe they do kind of what they did last week against Minnesota where they run the ball 30 times. But regardless of that, like Mitch Trubisky's in a fine spot here. So if you're kind of in a pinch at quarterback, I do like Mitch Trubisky quite a bit. Matt Ryan, when I was looking earlier in the week, like they were pretty low on Matt Ryan. I think I have him a little bit higher than what most people do, which is kind of ridiculous to me because we just see him come off a 330 passing yard game and 3 touchdowns against the Bucs. And they are playing the Chiefs in Arrowhead this week, and it is an outside game. But to be honest with you, like this Chiefs pass defense can be had a little bit. I think Matt Ryan is a pretty decent play this week. If you have him and somebody that you've I know a lot of people probably have been frustrated because he's been so up and down. I don't think Julio's going to be back. It'll still be Calvin Ridley's show. But, I do like Matt Ryan. I know you're going to talk about one of these guys, Baker Mayfield, who makes a lot of sense. Jared Goff, I think nobody's going to want to play him because of, we just saw what just happened with him, right? Like he looked horrific against the Jets. Like, losing that game to the Jets was pretty embarrassing. I think in this matchup, bouncing back a little bit against Seattle, we'll see, division game this week. Those games can kind of go different directions. Kirk Cousins against the Saints defense, like I don't really love, but and some guys down here that I'm a little bit lower on is like a guy like Drew Brees, who I know it's his first game back, so maybe he looks a little bit better against Minnesota. Minnesota's pass defense isn't like ultra scary, but without Michael Thomas, it really kind of lowers this pass offense ceiling a little bit. So I think you could play Drew Brees if you were desperate and there's nobody else available, but I'm kind of trying to avoid him. That's why I kind of want him down a little bit further because I just don't want people to play him because I just don't think the upside's truly there in this matchup. And then these other guys, Ben Roethlisberger, this dude, he looks like he shouldn't be in the league anymore after watching him play against Cincinnati. Like this offense has become so fucking predictable. Like they do the same thing over and over and over again. It's these quick slants over again. And it's like teams are now figuring this out. I'm like, okay, we're just gonna guard you, and we're gonna play press, and we're gonna eliminate some of this shit, play zone, and eliminate some of these quick slants that they're doing because that's literally what their offense is predicated on. And finally, they want to try to throw the ball deep a little bit, but multiple times he missed wide open wide receivers that should have been touchdowns or long gains. And his arm just doesn't. I mean, maybe he's nursing an injury that we don't know about because this stuff kind of happens where these guys play through stuff and we're not sure about it. Because I don't remember talking about this earlier in the year with Roethlisberger. So I don't know, but this offense looks atrocious right now, and they need to get it on track. But I'm not going to be betting on it against Indianapolis.
No, you can't. Not against this defense. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier in the year that some of their numbers were inflated in terms of how good they looked, but they're going to be able to get after this line. That line did not look good against Cincinnati, and if only there was a disgruntled Steelers fan talking about that they weren't that good all year long. But anyway, I digress. This is not the Steeler hate hour. You mentioned it. The guy I want to touch on real quick, and then we'll wrap things up, is Baker Mayfield. Now, both of the options that we were talking about, Mitchell Trubisky available in 28 or only rostered rather in 28% of ESPN leagues. Baker only rostered in 35%. So both these guys widely available. Someone else you had on your list that's interesting against the Raiders, Tua sitting at 31% ownership. But real quick, just on Baker Mayfield, really been turning things on the past couple of weeks. Over the last 3 weeks, he's QB4 in ESPN scoring, and he's QB7 over the last 5. Now, what's kind of crazy is that he threw for over 250 yards just one time in his first 10 games. And each of the 4 last games that he's played, he has surpassed that mark in each of them. He has a couple 300-yard games, and he has multiple scores in all 4 of those games as well. They get the Jets this week, who somehow, some way beat the Rams, which my God, just what an awful showing by them. Held Goff to 209 passing yards. But I think they go back to the Jets that that we all know and love for fantasy purposes this week. So I think you definitely have some options out there if you want to look at some different streamers. So that is going to wrap things up for the quarterback rankings. Any questions, just drop them in the video, and be on the lookout for the running back and wide receiver videos. We will be going live Wednesday night to answer your questions, and then again on Sunday morning when we give away the Allen Robinson autographed jersey. So make sure you tune in on Sunday because we're not going to hold that for you forever. Too sweet. It's going to go quick. Talk to you guys soon. Hope you guys have a great week 16 and a great Christmas.